Welcome back to Welsh Miniature Board Gamer, and today we're going to have a kind of a review of the Rangers of Shadowdeep, a Gathering of Heroes. So this is Joseph A. McCulloch's uh, kind of an expansion, I suppose you could call it, although I wouldn't call it an expansion really. It's more of a collection of works, etc., for Rangers of Shadowdeep. So yeah, it's published by Modifius. Uh, and it's a lovely hardback book, very much like the Modifius hardback book for the core rules, etc. Now, this book is really a bit of a conundrum for me, really, as to whether I would recommend it. It's sort of kind of where you're coming from when you get to this book. So I would say if you're a player who has played through all of the core book and the Burning Light, this would be a good book for you. Okay? If you have bought the core rulebook, you do not need this book yet. And I would not recommend buying this book. If you're thinking about buying this book, spend that £20 or whatever on some more miniatures. Get through all of the missions in the core book, which will take you quite some time, and you'll be happier doing that. If you buy this book and you haven't even played Rangers of Shadowdeep, I don't think you're going to really get much out of this book. And I will explain it now what my thoughts are on this book. So the first half of the book are sort of extra rules that you can add, I suppose, what you could call them. So it uses the sort of traits and flaws kind of mechanics. So you can buy with your build points traits which can be offset with flaws, if you understand what I'm saying. And that's kind of cool, and it's kind of interesting, but it's okay. It's not something I would buy this book for. I can see adding more customization to a character is good, but I don't think that really would sell me on this book. It's also got archetypes like the Red Hawk Knights, and just quickly flick through some of them, and the River Sharks, and the Servants of Seth. Now these are like archetypes that you can add on to your character to give them sort of extra abilities, but it does take out some of the build points and gives you some limitations on what you can spend things on. So to be honest, I'm probably never gonna use the archetypes. I don't see why I would. I think that I could use the basic character creator in order to make whatever character that I want. So I wouldn't really worry too much about this. The traits and flaws are pretty good. They're quite an interesting thing. And if you wanted to add that extra dimension to the characters, you could do that. But I probably still won't. As much as it adds to a character, and I like the idea of, filling out a character a bit more. I'm from a role playing background, so I like to have 100 different skills I can choose from, or 100 different abilities, and mix and match and what have you. But with Rangers of Shadowdeep, one of the things I think it really works well is that you don't need that, and it kind of works. So I'm not terribly sold on that, and I'm not terribly sold on the archetypes. So that leaves us like magic weapons. I do quite like the magic weapons. He has expanded on them, so think of it as sort of a D&D magic items book, or a Roll Master Creatures and Treasures book, if you will. It gives you like a list of weird and wonderful magical items, which is really interesting and cool, and I kind of like that. I don't need it, but I do kind of like that. So the first half of this book really is not particularly thrilling for me. I would buy this book because I like Joseph A. McCulloch's work, and I would like to support him regardless, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not terribly keen on that aspect of this book. Now, the second half of this book is where it would come into its own for a lot of sort of middling, sort of new players that have been in it for a while, but not too long. So that is, he has done a compendium of the missions that he has released on drive-through RPG or drive-through wargaming or whatever they call it now. I forget. So he's put them together in this book. So he's sort of combining all of those adventures that he had done and put them in this book. So we have Blood Moon. We have Temple of Madness. I'm going to flick through the book because I don't want to show too much because I don't want to ruin it. And I do know some people like freeze the camera to see what, so they could copy out these things. I know there are weird people in this world, but there are people who do that. So Menagerie was included in this, which is the animal one. Ghost Stone. Incinerator, and is there one more? No, and then it's the magic weapons, etc. He has also done a sort of like gathering of all of the creatures and putting them in this book, which is kind of nice. So if you haven't got those adventures, then it's well worth this because it's cheaper than buying the individual books from drive-through. As you can see, I did buy the individual books, so for me, it wasn't really worth me buying this book, I wouldn't have said. But I'm a bit of a completionist for Rangers of Shadowdeep, so I kind of wanted it all in one book, and it is kind of nice to have it all compact. Now, it doesn't include Across the Wastes, Dungeons Dark, and the Tenebrous Tower, because that's his like grand campaign, which is like after you've finished all the core book, you could kind of go on to that. That's the logical follow on from the core book. It's a really nice book. It's really nicely laid out. The paper is nice, the cover is nice, the art, as always, is nice. But do you need to buy it? Only a very specific people do. The people who have been in it for a while, haven't bought the other expansions, singularly, and have decided that they want to carry on, playing the game, etc. So, yeah, it's a very mixed one for me. I like it, and I have troubles finding the demographic that would need to move into this book. But that's really up to you how you feel about this book. But that's my feelings, and I hope that there's no bad feeling about what I think of this book, because that's my opinion, etc. And Joseph A. McCulloch has come up with a game which I can play forever, and I probably will. So if you've liked this video, please leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, you can, and I will reply to every single comment. If you want to see more from me in the future, you can always subscribe. But until next time, it's going to be goodbye from me, a Welsh miniature board gamer.